everyone. Welcome to the Toth Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Megdance, and I'm here with my co-founder, Braedin Toth. How you doing, man?
Good.
We're going to talk today about how Braedin started this whole thing, how he quit his job and went full-time on his passion, photography and videography. Should be sweet.
Quit.
You'll learn more about that in a bit.
Sounds good.
I didn't even know you till about grade 11 or so I'm interested to learn a bit more about you.
Sounds good.
We've been friends for a while now, but you can always learn more about people. So I want to know, when you were growing up, were you creative? Like, did you grow up with a camera in your hands, or were you kind of doing other things in high school and stuff?
Totally. Yeah, never touched a camera growing up, photo or film. I was pretty on the non-creative side. I don't know what that looks like, but more kind of like into sports, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I did a lot of Lego growing up. I don't know if that's creative or not. But basically in growing up until middle school and high school, I was really into skateboarding. All my friends growing up were skateboarders and snowboarders. And we did like a bit of filming when we went snowboarding, but like it was, nothing like significant and creative. So I did a lot of skateboarding and snowboarding growing up until about grade 11. And then when I moved to Cloverdale, a lot of my friends seemed to play football, and I never kind of grew up around football. Mostly it was just skateboarding. So I was like, my friends kind of pushed me towards football, and my gym teacher at the time was part of the coaching staff. So he's like, you need to play. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. It wasn't really my style. I was more into skateboarding, more into like that kind of group, which is different than the jocks of football. So, but after playing football, I kind of became pretty serious and loved it.
You were pretty good, weren't you?
Oh, that's pretty unreal. we played together. You were a year younger, but on the same team.
Yeah, you had a couple touchdowns. I remember.
Yeah, but the thing is, I got injured in high school playing football.
Yeah,
my back injury, lower back. Yeah, and that kind of motivated me going out of high school to go into university for kinesiology.
Right.
Because I was like, well, this sucks. I want to help people get better with their back injuries and injuries in general, because you can't do fun things when you're in pain. So that's kind of where I went after high school. I did some science and then eventually into a kinesiology program.
Right. So elaborate on that a bit. You're in university, you're doing kinesiology. What are you doing for a job at this point?
Yeah.
Are you just coasting, you're going to school kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I was working in the summer. I'd work this ironworking job. So I was away for majority of the summer building Costco's, actually, like the structural shell of Costco's in like Ontario and on the East Coast. And then I'd come home, and during the year, I'd work random jobs, some restaurants, fitness center. And eventually I figured, I was like, oh, you know what? My back is better. I'm not like as passionate about this anymore. I'm going to take a year off university, figure out what I'm into. And then I started working at this potato farm, which was a lot of fun. And I did that for about 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when did you start kind of developing the skills that you use today, like social media, photography, videography? Where did that all happen?
Yeah, I did like hiking and kind of going on road trips with friends. And at the time, we were both volunteering, I think, for an organization called Young Life. And we take these annual trips down to California, down to Santa Monica on the beach. And we'd always drive down, and there would be so many cool spots to stop at on the way down there through Washington and Oregon. And I kind of wanted to capture that in a way, more than my phone. So I got a GoPro, and I made some like videos, and they're the worst things ever. But I think that's probably where I started dabbling into that space.
Right.
Yeah.
What was that first road trip like for you? Like, was it like, this is unreal? Like, I need to do this more?
I mean, I felt like, I was like, this is pretty easy. Like, we just kind of wake up in the cars, go to cool spots. And I was like, I could probably do this. Like, I don't know if this is a job, but like, it's pretty fun.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. But at this point, you are still on the farm. You're still in kinesiology at this point.
Yeah. Eventually I did not drop out of kinesiology. I took a year off.
Yeah.
8 years ago or whatever. Yeah. Took a year off, and then I wanted to figure out what I was doing, because I was working at the farm, and then I was like, it was hard to do school and make enough money for the rent and car and stuff like that. So, kind of spent a lot of time on the farm, like looking at social media, because we had these tractors, and the tractors were so like high end that they'd have these GPS systems built in, and you could just like click a button and it would just drive straight on the field, and you'd have to turn around at the end. But basically you'd sit in these like, it was like an enclosed cab with like air conditioning. You can take your shoes off and kind of just sit there, and like you'd watch what's going on in the back. But basically it's like super, just does everything for you. And I spent a lot of time on my phone during that whole process.
Right.
And
was that allowed?
it was discouraged.
Right.
I remember a few times getting in conversations with my supervisors being like, you can't be on your phone, because they have like binoculars that like going on you. And
What?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So they're watching you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I definitely shouldn't have been on my phone when I'm in the tractors, because they are like $1 million machines and we're plowing the fields and stuff. But I was like, as a millennial, I'm like, what else do you do when you're sitting there for 12 hours?
Right.
And sometimes you'd have to go like half an hour, 45 minutes without turning around. So you just sit there.
Right. So you're not just going to stare at the wall. You're going to learn something.
Yeah. So I was learning about social media on Instagram a lot, trying to figure out like how it worked and what, why I liked certain photos, why I didn't like certain photos. And I feel like that all those hours in the tractor really helped me figure out stuff about photography and social media and how it worked and algorithms and stuff like that.
Right. So it's just like, and at this time you were also, I guess, like still going these road trips and hikes and stuff like that. So
yeah,
you were able
weekends.
to go, right. So what exactly you're learning in this tractor? Are you like, you're just like studying Instagram and?
Yeah, pretty much just looking at different camera gear. And I'd spend like, because we'd get to the field sometimes at like 5 a.m. So I'd watch sunrise from the tractor, and after the full day of work, I'd watch sunset, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could just be outside and like be out exploring during these times, because it's so beautiful. And most of the fields were out in Chilliwack, so we have the huge mountains, and it was just it was inspiring, because I'm like, okay, I want to learn some stuff about photography. Then on the weekends I can go out and shoot these like crazy sunsets and stuff.
Right. So what is the point then where you decide to go all in on photography? Like, what's the tipping point where you just said, I'm done with the farm, I'm going all in on?
Yeah, well, it wasn't really like a bold move on my part where I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go and pursue my dreams. It was like, hey Braedin, we're laying you off from the farm, you're on your phone too much. And I was like, okay, not your typical like cool story of starting your own.
It's not you against the world. It's like, sorry man.
yeah. So I was like, never made to be a farmer. It was a lot of fun. I actually had some great times with the guys at the farm, but I definitely was like so into photography, I couldn't stop looking at social media and researching cameras and watching videos. And eventually that led to me being laid off from the farm. And at that point, I was like trying to figure out like, okay, is this a viable like career? Is there a way to make money off this? And I remember in the tractor looking at an Instagram account, because the farm I was working at was Potato Farm. And they had a sister brand that was a potato chip company. And they did Instagram, but it wasn't anything great at the time. And I was like, well, I go on these hikes on the weekend, I could probably take some chips and take some photos and create some like branded content for them, because I was learning this. And I was like, and at the time, I think right before I got laid off, I had started like a small contract running the Instagram for this chip brand for $500 a month. Right. And I was like, oh, this is like another avenue of revenue. And then all of a sudden it was my only avenue of revenue. Right. And it was $500. And I was like, okay, if there's a spot or like a time to like maybe go for this, where I could just like get a career that is like taking photos and road tripping with friends and making videos, this was probably the time, because I don't have to work anymore. I have 2 weeks of severance pay where I can like scrape by, and then
window.
And then I needed to make more than $500 because I had my car and phone bill and rent and all that stuff. So
right.
Yeah, that was the tipping point for sure.
So you get laid off.
Yeah.
Are you like, what are you feeling in that moment? Like, are you freaking out? Like, okay, I got $500. Like, what's the, is there anxiety there?
Yeah, I was definitely tripping out a bit. I remember feeling like, I'm like, okay, I have literally 2 weeks. Am I going to have to go get another job at a restaurant? Because I used to work at restaurants. Like, there's all these possibilities in my head. And I was like, if I have the shot to make this a career and this my job, this is like, I just need to go for it. And I was pretty motivated. And when you're motivated on that, like just paying next month's bills,
right.
It gave me some pretty good motivation. And I remember when I was on my only client's account managing their Instagram, there's other businesses like interacting with the content. And I'm like, well, if they like the videos and photos I make, I could probably go and ask them if they would like the same services. So that's what happened, I think, like a week after I got laid off. And I talked to this guy and we were able to figure something out. And then all of a sudden I had 2 clients.
Right.
And I think, that was probably enough for me just to like scrape by with bills and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, at that point I was like, wow, this actually could be a thing.
Right. It's cool how you identified a problem with one brand and then you were able to take that and kind of apply it in other places. Like, it just took you figuring out like, oh, maybe this like is a problem I could solve. And then by solving that problem, you can solve all these other problems, which is kind of what we still do today. In a lot of ways, we're still doing similar stuff to the original clients.
For sure.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear a bit more about Yeah, the journey. If you could give creators out there just a word of advice, if they're in a similar place to where you were, they're sitting on a tractor right now, they're working in a restaurant, and they don't want to be there, they want to be hiking, adventuring, creating. For freelancers, what would you say to them to get started on making that maybe just a side hustle or maybe their career?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say figure out what you love doing and what kind of content you like, and then figure out how to create that type of content. So when I was sitting in the tractor, I was looking at all this stuff. I'm like, these spots look amazing. I want to visit these spots. I want to make videos here. I want to go here with my friends. And from that, once you develop like a style and a skill that you're passionate about, I'm talking about passion that like it's not work for you to go and like research camera gear and research like places. It's just like so fun. You do it till like 3 a.m. And like you need to go to bed, but you can't stop learning because it's that fun. Find something like that and then figure out a problem that you can solve. So at the time it was this brand needed content with their chips, and I was like, I'm going on hikes all the time. This seems to work perfectly. So figure out a problem and a need for a company that has a budget, and then be like, I can solve this problem, and this is how much it costs. And then majority of the time they're gonna be like, that makes sense. Let's work together, and then you have a career.
Last question, how did you know that they had a problem? Like what did you identify exactly?
Well, I feel like they had a pretty good like team going. They're making great chips, and I was like, with the Instagram, it was just like in office stuff with some chips, and I was like, this is like an outdoor lifestyle brand. They should be out in the outdoors. I'm like, I'm already going on all these hikes.
Right.
Like it makes so much sense that I'd bring this brand along with me and take photos. And I think it just would strengthen the brand overall. And it took me a long time. I think like the first time I asked was like 4 months prior to me actually getting this this gig. But I was like, yeah, I'm like, you obviously have a need. There's like, you have like not that many followers. I think they had like 300 or 400 followers at the time. I had 20,000, which is like not significant nowadays, but back then it was enough to say like, hey, I know what I'm doing on this. Like I can make this happen for you too.
Right. That's like A-list celebrity back then.
Big time.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, thanks for chatting with me today, man.
No worries. Sounds good.
Thank you, everybody, for listening today. Hopefully you learned a little bit about Braedin and how this thing all started. We will see you next time on the Toth Media Podcast. Peace out.